The first step in creating this eye drawing is understanding what the underlying structure of the eye is. So there's an eyeball that fits inside the socket in the skull. And then you have all the skin and muscle, eyelids, everything that fits in around it. Eyes are different shapes. They're not exactly the same, but some common things with them is the way the eyelid and the upper lash line lay across the iris in the pupil. Then the eyelid comes across and it falls into this crease that's wrapping around the structure of that socket. There's the tear duct in the corner, inside corner, and then the lower lid you see a light edge. The upper lash line you see a dark edge. The upper lash line falls across the pupil across the iris, which is the color part of the eye, close to the pupil. The bottom, and this is when an eye is looking straight ahead. When you smile, it crinkles up some more, and there are different things that happen. But staring straight ahead, the lower lash line or lower lid falls across the bottom of the pupil. So I do have reference in the classroom that you can fine-tune your drawing with before you go to actually start painting. But to start the drawing, the sketch of it on your paper, on the slideshow I have two slides that kind of show the way it starts. An eyeball, big white eyeball. In the center of it would be the iris, and then the center of that, the pupil. The upper lash line goes up and straight over and down just above the pupil and across the iris. Then you've got that crease of the lid. You've got the tear duct in the corner here, and the lower lid comes just below that pupil. Okay, then you can develop it a little bit more. You don't want to get into too heavy. The lines are too dark really on this. You don't want to get that dark. You don't want to really do any shading. You just want to get the basic structure of the eye drawn nice and light. Okay, so you can put your eye on your paper in two different options you have. One is to draw it in the middle of the page, but always shift it up a little bit. I'd like to see more dripping and blowing out towards the bottom. But you could have your eye on the page like this. Okay. The other way is to put it on the page like this. So use the portrait format and shift it towards the top so that you have a lot more dripping. Okay, and that, to show it the lengthwise, it would be on the page something like this with lots of dripping and blowing out this way. Okay, I'm going to set mine up like that. So I'm going to start off with a nice round circle. With a circle in the middle of that. I'm drawing this really light, okay? You need to have it very light. When you erase, you have to be able to not press hard at all. Have a good eraser. You don't want a hard, dirty eraser. And you want to be able to erase it really easy. Watercolor paper, you can tear up your paper and then it won't be good. So again, really light. I'm going to get this. This is the iris. And then the pupils on the inside. This is the white of the eyeball. And if you're looking at one of the other references, you're going to look at how much of the white of the eye shows on those two sides, and you may end up making sure that you have the larger circle big enough to give you that kind of space. I'm not worried about it being perfect. I develop it as I go. One thing to learn about drawing and painting is it takes time. It doesn't just come out perfect. You're measuring, you're fixing, you're adjusting all the time. Okay, now that upper lash line. What you want is a bit of a flatness to the top, and it needs to overlap the iris and maybe like halfway between the iris and the pupil, and you want it to go down and go outside of the white of the eye here. Over here, we're going to come down a little more drastic right to the corner, but again, extend it a little bit. Here is your pupil area. So that area is kind of like this. Okay, and then the bottom of the eye is a little bit straighter, curves down a little bit right along the bottom of the iris, and then it turns up out at the outside of the white of the eye, like so. And then I kind of fine tune that. Again, looking at a specific eye, you're going to have a little bit more to go on. I'm just trying to give you some of the basics here. And then you can adjust it in class before you start to draw too. So at home, you're getting the size that you wanted, the position on the paper, you're getting the basics of the eye. We've got the crease of that eye somewhere right along here, narrows, usually a little bigger towards the outside. And then I can erase this part. Okay. There's going to be some shading in here. You're going to paint that. You've got your iris, should be pretty round. So I'm rounding a couple of areas up. Don't worry about the eyelashes yet. They're going to come off of here, and it does extend beyond here. The eye, you see the thickness of the width of the eyelid on this lower one as it turns this way, and you see a little bit of it along here. You see it mostly by just that lightness because it catches the light, and it comes along here. And then that's really all you're going to need. You may fine-tune this shape a little bit. I'm looking a little flat through here, so I'd sit and work this a little bit. I'm going to fine-tune the roundness of my pupil. When I draw and paint eyes, I always make my pupil a little bit larger than most of the photographs, because in photographs, a flash usually dilates it. But anyway, I can clean this up. I have some kneaded erasers in the class. We'll do a little bit of last minute cleaning up before you start your watercolor. But then I'll be able to do a detailed painting, this part of the eye, and then I'm going to blow out, and I'm going to drip and blow out down below. I hope this helps, and we'll see you back in class.